So let's be honest, having multiple passions and interests can make it really challenging to build a profitable personal brand, one that you can actually monetize to see an income off of some of the passions, the interests, and the skills that you have. All these moving parts can make it challenging to focus in long enough to see significant income. But as somebody who's been building a personal brand for over 6 years and who's never hyper niched down and still was able to build a community of over 200,000 people across platforms and still been able to monetize, and who's now running a community of women who are doing the same thing, I want to share some of these steps, some practical steps that you can take in order to build a profitable personal brand. But before we go straight into those steps, I want to take a moment to contextualize all this talk of a profitable personal brand, because what are we actually talking about? Well, at a very high level, a personal brand is how you are recognized, right? How you are received by the world, your work, your impact, what you're effectively known for. And that means that it can be an amplifier for whatever product, services, business, or career that you have been building over the last few months or years. It is what Naval, the famous investor, refers to as a new form of leverage, something that can amplify or multiply your ability to make an income because your ability to impact people has been expanded. Now, this is applicable whether you're building this personal brand as a side hustle, so, outside of your career, or you're doing this full time in terms of your business that you're trying to set up or have already set up, or as a content creator, and that is your standalone. Now, I get it, because as a multi-passionate woman, you may still be sitting there thinking, but I don't really know how I fit into this model. How can I make it make sense? But I want to make the case that you're actually uniquely placed because of these passions and interests. Your unique configuration means that you can stand out in often saturated markets because of it. And I think it will make a lot more sense as we progress through the steps. So let's just get into it. So step one of this process is actually getting clear on the value that you offer or that you want to offer. And we're going to use my personal branding formula to do this. Whether you like it or not, business and profits are really just about serving the needs of others. More specifically, solving the problem of another person to the point where they want to give you money in exchange for that. Now, while I don't subscribe to hyper niching down, and I never have, it is still important that people understand what that value is. If it's too convoluted or confusing, then people are typically not likely to exchange money for that thing, right? They're not going to purchase that product or that service because they're not quite sure how it's going to help them. Now, that's where the challenge comes in as being multi-passionate, but why I actually want to introduce the personal branding formula to help you out. Now, you may have already seen my video where I broke this down in depth, but if you haven't, stick with me, and even if you have, you'll understand how you're going to use it to build out an offer in a moment. So the aim of the formula that I'm about to share with you allows you to kind of concentrate your efforts into some of these passions and interests, but still infuse your personal brand with your values, your core values, and the energy that is unique to you. And this is what the formula looks like. Skills plus passions times or multiplied by your energy to the power of your values. Now, what do each of these mean, and how does that relate to a profitable personal brand? Well, your skills are typically something that you have a proven ability in. You've often been paid before to do this thing, either at work or in a business capacity or consulting, right? Somebody has recognized that for this skill that you have, there is an outcome that is beneficial to them. Then you have your passion. So these are things that you may not be at the level of the skill with in terms of your ability, but you have a genuine interest and desire to go deeper into that thing, right? It is something that lights you up and that you can see yourself working with into the future. And often we can think about the interesting synergies between these two. Then you have your energy. This is again unique to you. Some people are direct and confident. Other people are bubbly and more loud. Other people are just more soft. And finally, everything is to the power of your values. What is it that is core to you in everything that you do, the way that you move through life, through work, through everything, right? These are unique typically to you again, but will feed into your passions, your skills, your energy, and the way that you want to serve others and solve problems. Now, once you have this formula, right, we have some sort of basis to focus our energy towards. Now, this again does not mean that all our other passions and skills can never be spoken about. They often will form like almost a secondary or an ancillary part of your personal brand, but we do have more of a focus now, right? I would say no more than 2 should be in each of these categories, really. You can do more, but you need to remember the more that you add into the formula, the harder it gets to refine things and to be known for something. Okay, so now let's go a little bit further. I'm going to plug in some of my attributes into this formula to show you again how that actually translates to solving problems for others and then getting paid to do so. So I would say my major skills are in engineering. I've been an engineer for 5 years now. Over 5 years, I'm a senior engineer, right? Pretty solid. But I'm also a content creator. I've been doing this for over 6 years. On this platform alone, we're at over almost 180,000 and other platforms and so forth. So content creation is clearly, I have a proven ability in this thing that counts as a skill. In terms of my passions, I would say personal development is something that has been close to my heart forever. Well, for as long as I can remember anyway. In terms of energy, let's go with direct and confident. And in terms of my values, freedom and multi-passionate living, right? Living as a multi-passionate modern Renaissance woman are very high up there for me. Okay, so now we have my personal branding formula. How can I use that to start to work out the problems I want to solve? Well, let's draw on the content creation skill at the moment and the fact that I value multi-passionate living. Well, from there and then, I could solve the problem that for a lot of multi-passionate people, women, it can be challenging to build a personal brand or to create content in a way that makes sense, that isn't overwhelming, and that doesn't take up all of your time, right? Because I have been doing this for years, I have that skill, but I'm adding that layer of the value to it. So again, it's not just so blanketed or so one-dimensional, hyper niching to the point where I just talk about content creation, but I never infuse any of the other parts of me. Because what you'll also see when I talk about content creation, if I went down this route, is my engineering principles will come in. The frameworks, the way that I look at the world is likely going to impact the way that I solve this problem for this group of people. And now we've seen that, well, I've taken this formula and I've actually been able to pull from it in a way that allows me to solve a problem for a group that I am uniquely positioned to do. Let me just give you another example, right? I could take the engineering aspect and the personal development aspect, and again, maybe the multi-passionate or the freedom version. So maybe I like to use my engineering, design, and systems thinking to help solve for the issue of feeling chaotic in life if you're multi-passionate. Right? You want freedom, you want structure, but you also want to be multi-passionate and dimensional. Well, I can then use my engineering principles and understanding to solve for that problem and my interest in personal development that I've been exploring for years. And now we have something else which I might start to explore and think about in terms of an offering that I could exchange for value. And just one more example of how I could pull this out to start to make a profit from my personal brand is I could take maybe my engineering experience, right? My career-based experience as an engineer, the fact that I may am more confident or direct, and layer that with the freedom component to say that I want to create an offering or solve for the problem of how do you have a career, right? Then structure that career for success and ambition, but also know that you're confident in both that career and the freedom that you want to explore other things in this world. Right? There's a number of ways we can start to draw out again what problems we could be solving. So now we've gone from this medley of skills, passions, values, and energy to a formula that creates a little bit more structure without hyper niching. And then we've thought about the ways that we might solve some of these problems based on our unique configuration, right? That unique formula. Now you want to start to think about the transformation that you could be involved in, right? How are you going to take someone from point A to point B? Okay, so let's go back to that example where I want to help solve the problem of being a multi-passionate person who wants to create a personal brand and create content around their interests to drive the right opportunities, right? Attract the right opportunities and outcomes. So what transformation am I really talking about here? Well, typically I'm talking about going from a place of chaos, misunderstanding or misalignment, right? And overwhelm around content creation and branding. And that's point A, and I'm taking you to point B where there is clarity around your personal brand. You're able to, consistently create content. You're able to understand or feel that you're attracting the right opportunities and outcomes. And that is the transformation. Now, the process is what happens in between, and we'll talk about the ways that you can maybe execute that or make sure that that occurs. But that is the transformation we're talking about. And again, people yourself, you'll notice you typically purchase or buy things or exchange value for a transformation. Even when you watch a video, right? There is an exchange happening there. In that sense, it might not be money, but it is with your time and energy. And it's usually in the educational realm on the promise of some sort of transformation. You will start the video at point A and you will get to point B by the end of it, whether it's better understanding, whether it's walking away with some steps in how to make a profitable brand or so forth. Now, two things I want to point out here is one, it can be very useful to source information about that offering, that transformation and that brand from the people around you, from the content that you're already putting out. If you're already in like the public space and visible and you get questions, maybe DMs, maybe comments, they can be a very useful source of information to start to understand where you might go with this offering and the problem that you're going to solve. What do people ask you about, right? Or what do you praise for achieving often? Or what have you seen yourself go through? What point or transformation have you yourself successfully moved through and likely collected information and data and experience on? And the second point that I want to talk about before I move on is, I know you may be thinking, it still feels a little bit like niching down, and there is a level of focus that is involved in a profitable endeavor, right? Unless your offering is, we're here for a good time, not a long time, and we're just we're going to vibe together, there is going to be a level of focus, but that does not mean your personal brand or your whole life has to become about one thing. But people do understand the value that you can provide to them in helping them get from point A to point B. And of course, this configuration can evolve and expand over time. Okay, so once you get that clarity around your brand, around your offering, the transformation and so forth, it's time to start to think about the ways that you want to execute this, the type of work that you like doing and the things that you don't. Because there are many ways to generate an income, right, or exchange value, or help people move through a process. And the whole point of this here is if we're building something maybe out of our careers or, an extension of that, that we lean into things that we like doing and that we're typically good at. This is where being a multi-passionate person can be very exciting, but again, also kind of confusing because you're like, I could probably do multiple of these. But longevity is key here, so let's focus in on what we really do like doing and what we're good at. If you like building systems or products, you like condensing information and flows into structured things that can be used by others, then things like self-paced courses or digital products and templates could be one way that you help with that transformation for somebody, right? That way that you're going to exchange value and start to make money from your personal brand. Your offering here is saving people time or energy or money. If you thrive off of regular contact with people and that is something that you enjoy, then you might want to make an offering or solve the problem through something like a cohort-led course where you're consistently over a period of time meeting with people, or a community, or live workshops, or in-person events, things of that nature that mean that there's an interaction of that sense with the exchange. If you love creating content and specifically around products or services or experiences, then perhaps that's the route that you want to take in terms of making a profitable personal brand, right? Whether it's through brand partnerships or UGC, which is user-generated content, where you actually produce content for brands and profit in that way, then think about exploring that route there. There are so many different ways that you can use your personal brand, the information, the knowledge, and the experiences that you have to generate income, that it's really down to you to sit with yourself and potentially with ChatGPT and work out what would make the most sense for you. Now, it's important when you're starting off that, yes, you might be interested in multiple ways of working this, and over time, you probably will evolve to have multiple streams of income or ways that you are exploring your personal brand and exchanging value. But at the beginning, it makes sense to probably focusing on one and getting that off the ground and also getting feedback from that. It also makes sense to not overly invest in the first kind of avenue that you go down, right? You might not want your first thing to be a live in-person event that requires you paying for venues and food and things of that nature. That can be challenging, and that's something that I, for example, explored later on in my process and my journey. And you might want to start off with something a little bit lower in investment. That does not mean it's low value, but in the sense that perhaps it's a digital product like a template or a really well-produced guide with worksheets and things that people can move through, right? Things that are less resource intensive upfront, or maybe even one-to-one consulting. That can be a great way for you in the realm of your personal brand, your formula, your transformations, to also get information on other people. It's actually a data collection process as much as it is you starting with the business. I feel like I've done almost everything at this point. I've done guides, I've done templates, I've done courses, I've done community, I have done live in-person events. Like, I've done a medley. And one thing I've noticed is that any one of these can work. Any one of these over a long enough period of time and with you consistently working to improve it can work, but you do have to understand where you work best. And it's okay if, you've tried and you've given it a go and it's like, this might not be for me, but you have to balance working on it long enough to see it through with understanding that it may be time to pivot. Okay, so where are we right now? Well, we have started off with getting clarity around our unique skills and passions, values, and so forth. That transformation that may help other people. We've got that. We've now thought about the work that we like to do, where our strengths lie, and where we might want to take people along that journey in the process, right? How that exchange might happen. Again, whether it's going to be in a course, whether you're going to deliver workshops, maybe you're going to do keynote speeches, going to do brand deals, whatever the case is. We're now at the point though where it's important that we start to get more visibility around these values that we have, around the offering that we want to put out there and how we can help others effectively. This is where you have to create content freely and genuinely and consistently. Now, I do think when you're generating content around the topics that you want to talk about or the topics that link to your transformation and your branding formula, that it should be from a genuine place of wanting to help others. Like, I believe that people should be able to make a transformation of some sort just through the content alone. Like, if you watch a video of mine, you should be able to go away and see a change if I've explained a set of steps for you to work through, right? You shouldn't have to only rely on the thing on the other end. The exchange or the product or the service that may be an extension can get you to the result faster, easier, like I said, maybe with more and a more enjoyable experience, maybe with others, maybe with feedback. It can accelerate the process or make it a more enjoyable experience, but you should still be able to make a transformation through the content if it's high enough quality. Now, when you're thinking about making this high quality content, you want to think about the pain points and the desires of the people that you want to help, right? That problem that you solve. What are some of the things that these people are struggling with, right? What outcomes are they after that you can help them just with free content to get closer to? And that can be a great source of information or a great source of ideas for content to create, whatever platform you're on. LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, doesn't really matter. You'll notice that most videos or most content that is aimed at educating or helping operates in this way, addressing a pain or a desire. Now, there's effectively two things that are happening as you make all this high quality content. You're positioning yourself almost as a thought leader or somebody who has a sense of expertise in the things that you talk about, right? As it pertains back to that personal branding formula and the problems that you solve, right? That you're uniquely placed to solve. And so by putting out that consistent content, being consistently visible, you can attract, right, the right types of people. Whether it is like you want to work in, companies and offer workshops, and so you're speaking maybe to more corporate audiences on LinkedIn, or whether you're speaking directly to people that you want to work on a one-to-one basis or with your digital products. So that thought leader kind of angle positions you as someone that can be trusted. And the second thing that's happening is you're now setting up a two-way conversation that can be had, so you can continue to learn from your audience and from the people that you want to work with, the problems that you want to solve, right? You now have this two-way street because they can send DMs or comments and ask questions, or you can even put out polls and things of that nature to collect more information. The next thing that you have to do if you want to build a profitable personal brand, and it's going to seem obvious, but a lot of us struggle with it, is talk about the offering. Like, if you have built something, and you've probably built something that has taken you a long time and you've invested in it and you've thought about it, and if you've been looking and getting feedback from your audience and the people you want to serve, ideally you've made something great. But if nobody knows it exists, then how can anyone interact with it? How can they buy your product or your service that could help them get from point A to point B, like we said, faster, with more ease, cheaper, or with a more enjoyable experience? You have to talk about it. And I know this can be uncomfortable. I completely understand, but you're actually doing the person a disservice because all of this, again, is optional. So if you're not at least putting it out there for people to decide if they want to interact with it, if they don't know about it, they never can. For example, if you know one of the ways you want to profit off of your personal brand or you want to monetize these skills is through public speaking, and you're making all this free content and it's fantastic on the particular topic, but you never actually mention that you are a public speaker. It's not obvious that you offer that as a service for maybe corporate or, that you host your own events. How's anyone ever going to be able to, again, interact with that? If it's not clear in your content, if maybe there's no even landing page, website, or anything where we can get some more information or understand how to book and interact with it, you see how there's a disconnect. And the final point of this is just about constant evolution, right? Again, I said it was a circular workflow versus a linear one. And so all of this is also providing you with opportunities to learn, to iterate, to feedback, and to just improve this whole process, right? You'll probably realize that I'm maybe not talking about things enough, or maybe not on the right platforms, or my problem that I'm solving doesn't really exist in the way that I thought and actually looks more like this. Another really big important thing here is you can start to now add and layer on different income sources or ways that you can make a profitable personal brand, right? Because now you might decide that, wow, my digital products are selling really quite well, but people are actually reaching out because they want more one-to-one contact or they want to be in a group. So maybe now you decide it's time for me to introduce that layer to it, right? Or maybe you decide, people are saying that they want an in-person space to connect and learn and things like that. So maybe I want to do some more in-person events. So this part of the process here, this evolution, is really just thinking about things as a continuum. It is continuously evolving, and therefore you're able to expand, contract, evolve, pivot to your own desires. And so that's what I want to speak about at a high level today, right? Any of these things really could be like probably a course in itself, if not a series of videos. And so there was more to explore in this sense, but I hope you've got an understanding of, like, at the high level, what it takes to turn your personal brand into a profitable one that actually can generate an income. And this is really important because we are moving into a world where we will see this kind of exchange between individuals more so than on a corporate level, right? Where we have to be dependent on a corporate job as our only source of income, and instead we can monetize the skills we have. And if you are a multiple passion's kind of girly, like you're a modern Renaissance woman, this is prime for you. But it's just about understanding how you can take, the wealth of experiences, your values, your energy, your passions, your skills into something that is tangible. I'll leave resources and links in the description, including the link to my community if you want to find out more. And otherwise, I will see you in the next video.